Welcome! This is the first in a series where we'll scratch the surface of what this exciting upcoming release has in store for us. The jump from ECMAScript 5 to ECMAScript 6 is huge. In this first episode we'll be looking at arrows, string templates, and also destructuring assignments. Right, first we'll have to set up a little environment for us to play around with the latest version of JavaScript. I've opted to use the Google Traceur transpiler because it supports the most features at the moment. To get the environment up and running, I cloned this little starter repo I've got on GitHub. Let's cd into this folder. We want to install the npm packages. Let's check out the starting point tag I've created on this repo. It's a good starting point for following along with the screencast. Now that we've got the files open in Sublime, let's navigate to the app.js file. The environment I've set up will transpile Harmony code in this file and run it. We start off with some vanilla JavaScript code. This code maps a bunch of numbers in an array and squares them, finally outputting them to the console. Let's adapt this code so that it uses the arrow syntax that we get with ECMAScript 6. First off, we'll be getting rid of this function keyword here. And now we insert the arrow syntax here. This arrow is what tells the engine that this is a function. We also don't need this return keyword here. We can go even further by removing these parentheses around the parameters. And there you go. As you can see, it gives us exactly the same result with way less code. This vanilla code creates an object literal with a name attribute, a friends attribute, and a print friends function. This code contains a scope problem which you've probably experienced 1,000 times before. The this in the for each function references the function scope and not the outer scope. So the reference to this.name points to an undefined variable. Luckily, the arrow syntax solves this for us by making the function use the enclosing scope. When I change this function to use the arrow syntax, you can see that the problem goes away by itself, without us having to do weird this wrangling. Here we've got a standard console.log statement with some string interpolation. To be clear, the interpolation that happens here is part of the console.log statement, and not baked into JavaScript. Let's change the string to use ES6 string templating. First, we wrap the string using the grave character. And where we want our variables, we insert this $brace syntax. Let's do that for each variable. And now we can take these variables from all the way over here and plonk them into their respective placeholders in the string. This reads way better because now you can see the variables where they'll be represented in the string. When we run this, you can see it gives us exactly the same result. Not impressed yet? Hold on to your seat. Look at this. You know these white space escaping characters that we've got in here? Let's replace them with the actual white space. So I'm replacing the carriage return with actual enters on my keyboard. And when we run this, you can see that it gives exactly the same result. We can also do that for spacing here. Let's replace those tag characters with actual spaces. I want this a bit deeper. So indent it a bit. There we go. This is a much nicer way to do white space in strings, don't you think? In this code, we've got a simple function that returns an array containing participants' positions in some sort of competition. We call the function and print the leader in a string template. Pretty simple. Now let's make it a bit more complex by also adding the runner-up to the string template. We do this by pulling out the second item from the array. Now we're going to use ECMAScript 6 destructuring to make this a bit more explicit. We're saying that we want the first two items to be pulled from the array and assigned to these variables called leader and runner-up. We then proceed to use these variables in our string template. And it does exactly the same, but this is way more expressive. Now we're going to have a look at object destructuring. This is a simple function that returns an object literal containing a vehicle's details. We then log out the vehicle in a string template again. Let's change this to use object destructuring now. We specify a literal. In here we say that we want the make attribute from the return of the function to be mapped onto a new variable called the make. The same for model. Now we can use these two variables in the string template. This gives us a very succinct way to assign variables from a complex object. This function takes one parameter called args. Then it uses attributes from that argument and spits it out to the console. To call this function, we specify an object literal containing the expected attributes. What I don't like about this is that it's not immediately clear what attributes are expected on the args. You actually have to go and have a look at the log statement to go and see what attributes to specify in the args parameter. Now there is a way with vanilla JavaScript to make this a bit more clear. You can specify local variables and pull the attributes from the args parameter onto those local variables. Now we can use these local variables in our string template. This makes it way more clear. But with ES6, there's a better way to do this, using destructuring on our parameter. We specify very similar to the previous object destructuring, that we want the variables to be mapped onto local variables in this way. So I'm mapping make to the make, model to the model, and color to the color. We change the string template to use these variables, and we get exactly the same result. But this is way more expressive. This is by far my favorite use of destructuring. And that's it for this episode. This barely scratches the surface of what ES6 offers us. In upcoming episodes, we're going to have a look at some more advanced features. See you soon!